The other day, Asmongold, the Twitch streamer dude man, I'm sure that's like what he likes to be called, and Elon Musk had a conversation, a very brief conversation over on X regarding real internet ID, humanity verification, authentication tokens, and the like. And I wanted to read a little bit of it to you now because I like that this conversation is going on. I agree and disagree with much of what many people are saying regarding it, and but I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, and I think for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of news going on right now, and a lot of things that are changing in the world relating to online censorship, humanity verification, age verification, ID verification, and a bunch of other things. And I think people are, for very good reason, a little bit concerned about all of this. So I'm just going to read what Asmongold posted here and what Elon followed up with. Quote, "Internet real ID is inevitable, especially for social media. Denying this might feel good, but it is a lie and you know it. What isn't inevitable is private companies having access to our public records. The best solution is a government authentication token that only verifies info." End quote. That's from Asmongold. To which I can I can already feel so many people screaming at their screens right now. And a couple of you just grabbed whatever blunt instrument was nearby and started stabbing your laptop. Here's Elon Musk's reply. Elon Musk replied with this, quote, "Government is much worse than any corporation, or you don't understand government. Government is simply the most powerful corporation with a monopoly on violence." End quote. I do like how Elon doesning really mince words. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him on any topic, he just starts stream of consciousnessing whatever's going on in his head, and I appreciate that. Asmongold responded, quote, "I would be fine with a third-party authentication token as well. I just don't see how you reconcile the growing demand for online accountability in any other more constructive way. The United States isn't even bad compared to other places, especially in regards to speech regulation." A couple of people had thoughts on what Asmongold was saying here about the internet real ID idea being inevitable. One person replied and said, "We are not going to comply, period." To which Asmongold responded, "You've already complied by providing your information to your ISP. If the government subpoenas your data, your ISP will give it to them. This is the same for every company because it's the law. For 99.9% of internet users, anonymity is a mirage." End quote. He's not wrong. I mean, the idea right there, the core idea being that being anonymous online is not really anonymous. It's more of a mirage than anything else, and he's right about that. If you really want to dig in and figure out who is behind something, and you have government level resources to do it, you're probably going to do it. You're probably going to be able to pull that off. And realistically, in most cases, it's just not even going to be that hard. It's just not. Now, providing some sort of base surface level pseudo anonymity, well, that's a bit more doable, providing enough anonymousness where, the average Joe Schmo using X or YouTube doesn't necessarily know who you are without spending significant amount of time digging at it. Well, yeah, that's doable. But anything more than that, it starts to get a little bit difficult. Another person responded, "The day I have to upload my identification to YouTube or any other online service is the day I stop using that online service." End quote. I don't think that person's alone with that. This guy named Will, I've heard from so many people with that exact same sentiment. And I totally get where it's coming from. Asmongold responded, quote, yeah, that's why an authentication token that only verifies info and doesn't provide it is the best solution. I don't think anyone wants to upload their ID to every single website online, end quote. Now, I wanted to actually talk about this a little bit, because I completely believe that humanity verification is reaching a point where it is really going to become a necessity for a wide variety of reasons. Some people may consider it to be an age verification issue, but really, when I look at it as I don't want specific internet sites to become a sea of bots, which it already is. If you spend any significant time on YouTube or X or a variety of other sites, you start to realize that you regularly are seeing a constant stream of just completely fake content, stuff that's just artificially generated by AI bots. It becomes difficult to know how many people are actually following accounts. So you can't really judge the popularity of an account by followers anymore because of the number of fake accounts and bots. You can't really judge the public sentiment on any issue based on the likes or quote retweets or comments on an issue because so much of it is bots. It's so easy to manipulate, which significantly takes away the value of those sites. Like if you go to X has value. It really does. There's value there. But if, the majority of accounts, or even just a significant number of accounts, are active bots, well, that significantly reduces its value rapidly, to the point where it almost becomes less than useful. It becomes actually harmful because it's just spreading just made up gobbledygook from an AI system, right? That's intentionally created to mislead and deceive, and that's no good. But there is significant and very real concerns with not just anonymity, but the security of your own private data, right? So, for example, I'm not worried about being anonymous, right? I'm out there. People know what my face looks like. People know what my voice looks like. I'm public, right? I'm not going to be anonymous on X or YouTube or podcasts or anywhere else. I'm not worried about the anonymity of it. I am, however, concerned about the security of my personal data, right? While I may not worry about my anonymity, I am worried about people having access to, where I live and my social security number and my credit card details and my shipping addresses and on and on and on, and access to my personal confidential information, all these sorts of things that I'm genuinely concerned about for me. And I think there's real value in some people being able to maintain a level of anonymity online for speech reasons and political dissident reasons and all sorts of things. So how do you accomplish humanity verification without sacrificing that security of your own personal privacy? And I think that's the real crux of it. How do you accomplish that? And so there's a few things here that Asmongold touched on that I think was pretty smart. The first is that there's a huge amount of data out there already on you, right? So if you exist in the digital age, there's a number of websites out there that have already verified your humanity. How about your bank, right? Does your bank know you're a person or not? Probably. How about the DMV? Well, that's the usual. Most of those systems are all online. So those are all online. So they're just right there. The Department of Licensing or DMV and whatever bank you use or banks not just know who you are, but they know that you're a human. So what if we came up with a system, and we widely adopted a system? Asmongold advocates for authentication tokens, right? So once you've identified yourself as a human in some way, like here I am, I'm a human, generate a token, a unique token for me that no one else can use and can be revoked if it turns out I'm really not a human. But figure out where I'm a human, here's a token, and I can use that to verify my humanity. Maybe for a combination of a token and a key value pair. I don't know. There's lots of ways to pull this off, but use that to identify me as a human, not to give up my personal information. Not to provide the websites with scans of my driver's licenses and birth certificates and social security cards and on and on and on, but to provide confirmation that I am a human, right? Because that's really the goal in all this. Because that fundamentally, once you hit that point where you can find a way to verify humanity, and preferably if you can also find a way to verify not just necessarily specific age, but over a certain legal age, that solves a whole bunch of problems that a lot of people are trying to solve, right? Age verification of social media and online sites. That's causing all sorts of ruckus in multiple countries right now and states, right? The UK just recently is undergoing all of this, where people in the UK can't access a wide variety of sites until they identify themselves as being over a certain age. Well, if we could find a way to do that where it doesn't violate our own personal privacy, perhaps through an online token. I've heard people suggest the possibility of a physical key that you could purchase, maybe even at a retail store. Go down to your 7-Eleven, flash your ID, or just show them your wrinkled, bearded face, and the guy at 7-Eleven gives you a token, and it verifies that you're a human over a certain age, or something like that. None of these systems are likely to be perfect. None of these systems are 100% foolproof, but they don't really have to be perfect and foolproof, right? By limiting the number or making it harder for non-human accounts to be created on social media where they're creating the impression that they're human, just by limiting that number, that's a win. Right? By making it significantly harder for little kids to get access to adult information, adult content only, just making it harder for them, that's a win, right? Because realistically, the real world operates that way too, right? If, you have to be a human in order to buy certain things. You have to be a human over a certain age to buy certain things. And there are ways around that, and people create fake IDs and whatnot all the time. The core of it is, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the solution needs to not be worse than the problem, right? So if we want to make it so that the internet's not filled with bots, and that little kids aren't getting access to adult stuff, and adults are only in only areas, those are good goals. Those are good things. Those are benefits to the internet. We just have to make sure that the method that we use to implement that isn't so heinous that it's worse than the thing we were trying to fix, right? I mean, I think that's a given. I kind of like where Asmongold is going with an authentication token. I do agree with Elon, though. I'm hesitant to say that governments should administer it that makes me hesitant. However, having seen how corporations and nonprofit foundations regularly abuse personal information and the like, I'm not super comfortable with them having a tremendous amount of information either. I kind of like the idea of going down to 7-Eleven and just buying and flashing my ID at the guy behind the counter and saying, yeah, I'm over 18 or whatever. Make me an internet token that I can use to prove I'm a grown man, right? I kind of like that. I also kind of like the idea of institutions that already, in order for me to use them, have verified my humanity, providing some sort of a mechanism. A token is possibly a good idea, where since they've already verified my humanity, they can provide the token that says, yeah, I'm a human, right? Without providing additional details, no scans of my ID or anything. My bank or the DMV or whatever, since they already have to have that information on record, I'm not providing any additional information. I'm not putting any additional information online to accomplish it. I am just simply referencing that someone else has already verified my ID. Right? That's all it's doing. Right? Not sending, right? If I want to say, hey, YouTube, verify that I'm a human. My bank already knows. Here's a token where my bank says, yeah, I'm a real person. And the bank says, yep, that guy's a real person. And no other information's really provided. Well, I'm all right with that. I mean, realistically, it's still not 100%. I can see some ways where it could be poorly utilized. I could see many ways it could be very poorly implemented. But for me, that seems like a fairly reasonable solution. Organizations that have already verified my humanity, acting as a voucher. Yep, I'll vouch for that guy. He is indeed a person. That Lunduke's a dude. I saw him once. He needs to shave his nose hairs. He's definitely a dude. I do need to shave my nose hairs, by the way. Anyway, so I like that these conversations are going on, and I think the more we have these honest conversations where we're not having just knee-jerk reactions. It's really easy to have a knee-jerk reaction to this, and I try really hard to not have it myself, because my initial gut response to any of this sort of thing is to say, I don't want organizations to have more data about me than they need to. They already have too much, because inevitably organizations have online servers and those servers will be breached. I've covered this so many times on the Lunduke Journal, where we've talked about the number of breaches and how the breaches are inevitable and in fact only going to increase. So if we can find ways to reduce the amount of data that's out there as best as possible while still accomplishing the goals of making the internet actually usable, well, I think that's a positive. Now, if we all decide there is no way to do humanity verification and it's just not doable in any way where the solution isn't worse than the problem, well, then we might as well kind of just give up on the internet. Because, quite honestly, it's already quickly approaching the point where many online sites have grown so large that they become a target for the bots. And the bots are making it unusable. They're ruining it. They're making it so that you cannot have conversations. You cannot gauge public sentiment. You cannot truly understand what's popular, what's not. You cannot get actual factual information because there's so much fake made up stuff by bots, not even by people, but just spewed out by the hundreds of thousands per second by bots, that it's just garbage. Who cares? Do you really want to log into a website and go, yeah, you know what? I want to sift through 10,000 posts where 9,800 of them are AI generated bot from bot farms by people who just want to manipulate me or mess with me or just be trolls. Like, do I want that? No, I don't want that. So we have to solve the issue if we want to keep using the internet. Now, maybe even the authentication, humanity verification token idea is too far, in which case let's give up on the internet. Let's just give up on it. Let's just all go back to ham radios and be happy. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing these sort of conversations to happen and the sort of coverage that the Lunduke Journal provides. Go to lunduke.com and click on some links. Support the Lunduke Journal. Keep this big tech free, woke free, ad free, and some other kind of free. I don't know. Caffeine free. Tech journalism. I really couldn't do it without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, across this vast and glorious inner tube of ours, I do declare, end broadcast.